thanks for taking a little bit of your afternoon, Mr. Wolman. We really appreciate it, and I've been fascinated with the history of this group for a long time, and you had a very unique job that not a lot of people, probably not a lot of people know about. But if you don't mind, I believe, were you drafted in 1942, is that right?
Right.
And can you tell me about some of the initial training that you went to after you were drafted?
Yeah. I went to Miami Beach for training, and was I don't know how many months, 2 months, and I managed to get through the training with 100 to 20 degree heat during the day. And then after that we were called to take tests what we were eligible for. And I took radio operating, the Morse code, and then they said they have openings for control tower operator. So I went from there to let's see, Rantoul, Illinois, which was the Champaign-Urbana Training School, south of Chicago. And it was a 7-week tour, a 7-week course on control tower operator. And I passed, and then they picked out to send us to radio operator school to Truax Field, Madison, Wisconsin. And there was 2 months. And the training there, you had to know Morse code and all that, and I did that. And then from there, they sent us to Truax, and after Truax, we were called to for a 3-month special, and I knew about placing the batteries in our Hunter Field, Savannah, Georgia, and I was there for 3 months. And we were putting in the radio equipment into the B-26s that was there ready for Europe, for Africa. And then I find out, and there I see Tommy Harmon was one of the leading pilots that were going overseas. Tommy Harmon, the famous football player.
Right.
Then from there, we went for physical training at Kellogg Field, Battle Creek, Michigan. And I was 6 weeks of that. All kinds of training that I had to do, and then they selected us out to go to Europe, and that was it. And I ended up on the Aquitania, which was a sister ship of the Queen Mary, actually of the Titanic. And that Aquitania took us to Scotland, and that was a hectic trip, because we were heading south to the Bahamas and then cross the Atlantic and then go up, and ended up at the shipping port of Gourock, Scotland, in let's see, it was August.
August of 1943, probably?
August of 43,
Okay.
yeah, yes.
And is that when you made it down to Thorpe Abbott's in August as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
then they selected the group, and Thorpe Abbott was just getting ready, was opening up then. Oh, just that it should have been, had to be comfortable and warm, and we were freezing in September and October because what do you call those? The heating units was in the middle of the barrack, which held 40 people, 20 on each side, and that was it. And the fellows that I was with were all very good. No problems of any kind.
And what specific section were you assigned to? You were in the 412th?
The 412th Air Service Group, which was the employees of the fire department and the traffic controller. That's where I got up to. And with the traffic controllers, the shift was 8 to 4, 4 to 12, 12 to midnight. And 3 shifts. Because that was this, and that was the same thing, the same shifts I got later on when I joined, I got appointed to the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration.
Did you get to change which shift you worked at Thorpe Abbott's, or did you always work the same schedule?
Not all, no, I worked all the same shifts, no.
Okay.
No change, I was mostly in the daytime, yeah.
Okay. Can you give me an example of some of the typical duties that you would have when you're during your time in the control tower, some of the things you do every day?
Well, we just kept a log of us, you know, on duty, and just be on the, just listen, keep, you know, they were checking their radios. All the aircraft on the ground was checking their radios, and the name of my tower was called Clear Up, one word. And otherwise, then when it came to June the 6th, 1944, that was the big thing that I have remembered in my book, a little book that I wrote. We got a call at 5 o'clock in the morning to come on duty at 7 on June the 6th, Tuesday. And we were there until Thursday. I forgot to do it. You have to figure out what day it is. 5 o'clock. That was it. 3 days straight.
And the group, the 100th Bomb Group, flew 3 missions on D-Day, if I recall correctly. So that was probably a very busy few days for you.
Oh yes, yeah. Take 12 planes at a time, every 3 hours. So, and with 48 planes on that airport, so you figure it was all busy.
Who was your immediate supervisor? Who did you report to in the control tower?
It's in here.
This is Captain Blondino?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's his immediate,
Okay.
and then he's on the next page, right? Careful.
And the next page,
One more page, yeah, up
I'm
there.
up on top. I'm with the, see, there's the tower up, there's the tower and all that. And these were the ones in charge of communications.
And who of the communications group were you close with? Did you have a good friend in there? Any close friends that you remember from your time there?
No, I just kept talking where they were from. One was from Brooklyn. I don't know where the others were. And no, never. The one person that I kept in touch it was Lieutenant James Pond. Yeah, and that's the only one, and then, well, we stopped communicating. He went to the Air Traffic Control Center in Jacksonville, Florida, Lieutenant James Pond, as a radar controller. Yeah.
When you were working in the tower, did any of the officers from the 100 come in, the commanding officers, like Colonel Harding or Colonel Jeffrey, did they ever come in the tower during the times you were there?
Yeah, Colonel Jeffrey, yes, yeah. And Colonel Bennett. Most of the colonels of the you know, of the bomb groups. But there was, well, we were so busy that it was hard to, you know, to talk to them. So.
One of the pilots that's here at the reunion told me that he vividly remembers when they took off, they didn't communicate with the tower that much over the microphone, but when they're coming in to land, he said
yeah,
he vividly
yeah.
remembers talking to you
It was
guys.
supposed to be no talking, because they could pick it up over there. But coming in, they would, taking off, they would use a red flag on, not through the tower, see? And they would take off one at a time at the time.
And when they came back?
And when they came back, they would call in if they had any emergency. We had to tell whoever the officers that were in charge to call the hospital,
Fire.
The medics.
The medics
Oh, the medics.
to be ready. Yeah.
What are some of the things that you, when a plane's coming in to land after a mission, what are some of the things that you would tell the pilot of that plane when he's coming in?
Oh, you mean what I have to say?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's clear to land, the certain runway, and then from there they knew where to taxi to their air base.
And then they would also tell you if they had injured crew or if the plane was in trouble.
Yes, we would notify the emergency crew, and they would, the ambulance crews, and they go right out. Yeah.
And did the pilots, when the pilots radioed you in the tower, did they identify themselves by name or did they identify their aircraft?
I think it was by name, but I don't remember.
And I know you were there early in the war when the 100th came back from some pretty tough missions. You would have been there in October when they came back from Munster. Do you remember some of those days where the planes came in pretty damaged or not many planes came back?
Yeah. Munster, Schweinfurt, unbelievable. We'd send out 10, five would come back. Or 6, but not the full crew. Because the Germans had the anti-aircraft just right, and how they knew that they were coming to that particular place to bomb, because we knew through intelligence the ball bearing plans, the different. And then we went, and even into the V1 and V2 buildings, planes that took off from Antwerp in Belgium at Pietermonde. And well, we were anxious too how many would come back, counting off, like the colonels of the groups that were in charge. All are on the second floor of the tower, and they were standing there against the railing. So.
And I imagine that on a good mission, people were probably pretty happy, but I know on a tough mission, the mood in the tower must have been pretty somber
Right.
on those tough ones.
Coming in with tails broken off, and with a rear end bomber tail gunner. Some of them were just laying there. They got a complete breakdown. How many went out? How many came back? Oh, Munster, yeah, on October the 10th. October the 10th. We sent out we sent out 12 aircraft to Munster. 121 were lost, and two aircraft was destroyed. Yeah, they came back. Was unbelievable. On the 14th, they went to Schweinfurt. Schweinfurt, we lost 7, and we didn't lose any aircraft or anything, or nothing. 0 of them. Only 7. 7 aircraft. They don't mention how many aircraft they sent out.
So you probably would have also seen on some of the tough missions when a plane comes back pretty damaged, if it has to crash land on the runway or veer off the runway.
Yeah, we notify them, and if they can't make the runway with one wheel, you know, or they're coming in on one wheel, and the fire department already notified, and they're on the way. So they took care of the aircraft while it was ready to come in. Yeah.
So I know the air crews stayed together. In your barracks, did you just stay with other guys from the 412th?
Just
Air
yeah,
Service?
yeah.
Okay.
There were firemen and a couple of tower operators, and the rest were radar controllers. I was in a radio shack at the end of the beginning of the runway, the beginning, and bringing them in if it was a little too hazy. They would come in with certain guns, radar guns, and tell them if they're coming in too high, they have to go around, or too low, or just right. And the fellow that I was bunked with, he was one of them, worked in the shack that was on the field, that checkered box, and bring them in with that they were perfectly coming in for landing.
You know, I can only look at pictures of this in retrospect, but I imagine during takeoff, for you to be able to see the planes lining up in the tower on the taxiway, it had to be an incredible sight.
And sure. I mean, to see them lined up and waiting to get off already. They would exactly like 7 o'clock in the morning was the usually time to go off in the morning. And they wait for the red flare from the tower by one of our men, who would shoot it off, and that was it. Then they go one at a time. They would circle around and get together in one formation and then head out over the channel.
So during the period where they're out on a raid and everyone's left the base, what would you do in the tower at that time? Or would you be relieved from duty at that time?
You mean after?
Like when the crews are out
Oh
on the
no,
bombing mission?
we were standing by and listening to any radar reports of them make off a bit coming, that they had to come back. So maybe they had engine trouble or that, and we were right there to answer them if there was any trouble. Oh yeah.
And I know you had a very specific job in the tower, but did you yourself ever get to talk with any of the crews or the men who were on those planes?
No, they were no. It was just the pilot or the co-pilot. No,
Okay.
Nobody else. The crews were busy enough with their own business, with being behind these machine guns and making sure that it was working. See, so that they were tested out. Once they were out up in the air, 10,000 feet already, they would test them out to make sure that the guns were working, and they use a couple of shots and that's it.
At some point during your time at Thorpe Abbotts, did you ever get a weekend pass or a week pass? Get an R&R trip of some kind?
Yeah, on weekends only. Leave it Friday night and come. I had to be back by Sunday night. I go to London because I made contact with somebody I could stay in London. I was with two families, and one family had an older woman that took her there, and for a couple of nights I was there about 6 months, and then I found out to get transferred to another. I got in. What would you call it? Invited to in the trip while in London. I was invited to a family with a Mrs. Angel, with her son David and her daughter Benny, and she worked for the government. She was civil service, and he was getting ready to be drafted to India. He was into the army, the British Army, to India. That's what they needed him, way out there. And I missed him by 1 month when he left, and I missed him 1 month when he came back 6 years later. Yeah.
Did you ever get to explore like in Norwich or any of the towns nearby, or just?
Yeah, we went to visit. Me and Mr. Lindbeck, Sergeant Lindbeck, and we would take a bus ride to Norwich, see the church that's there, and the bullet holes were still in there. They didn't touch them. They hit the steeples when they were raiding it back in 1940. All that time, and then we had got no raids. We got no air raids. When he started in April with the V1s, April of '45 with the V1, then the V2 bomb, the pilotless type of bomb planes, and one V1 went right over us. The V1 rockets were being shot off from Holland and Belgium by catapult, and those V1s traveled for 400 miles before they ran out of fuel, and then it would just crash and explode. Whatever. It was to kill the what do you call the people? The
kind of terror bombing, is what they call it.
Wow.
So you got to Thorpe Abbotts in '43. Were you there at the end in '45 when the war ended? Were you still at Thorpe Abbotts?
No. April, the bombings were stopped. The last bombings was April the 20th. They stopped already the bombings from Thorpe Abbotts. And then May the 8th was VE Day already. So that's when we got out of there. All the ground personnel, first the planes between April and May. And they sent us to a fighter air base. I don't remember the name. I might have it somewhere home. I don't know if I have it, for 6 months. And we were just sitting there and waiting because there were so many men from all the bases that they were closed by us nearby. They sent them to this one place for resettlement of each person, the name and that, and where they lived, so they could ready to ship us out.
Well,
out.
you were given a choice, though, if you wanted to go, right? If you wanted to go to France, you was given,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and they asked for any 6 months occupation. I said no. I had enough. It's 2.5 years over there, and that's it. That was it.
Think about it when you mentioned it about the synagogue. Was there a rabbi that was at Thorpe Abbot's?
No, there was only one chief rabbi for that part of the division, the 1st and 3rd division, and he only could give. There was no standard place. He stayed at the headquarters of the and just visit once in a while. He couldn't get to all of them. They only had one.
He helped conduct their religion. He helped conduct services, so he's in the picture.
So what happened? The Protestant chaplain got a hold of all the Jewish fellows that wanted to come, and he knew a little bit about the Jewish service, because here's the Catholic, here's the Protestant, and this is him. And so.
And he's in one of those pictures.
Yes.
He would help, right? Are you there,
Tank,
Dad?
yeah.
Are you in the picture? Is that one of your pictures?
Yes. See right down here.
That's him.
And so we had Friday night services.
He's in there.
They couldn't get enough for Saturday, so.
This is him right here.
So you would help with the Jewish services? then?
Yes, yeah.
How many people would typically attend those?
About 10, that's all.
But I'm sure that meant, I know in a climate like that, religion is very important, so I'm sure that those guys appreciated that a lot, that
Yeah.
service was offered.
Yeah.
And so your final rank, you left the military, was as a corporal?
As a corporal, that's all. That's a station, whatever they call it. I forgot what they call it, but that was the the ranking. That's how it was. Certain ones that had more background came to sergeant, but most the ones that we were working with was PFCs and corporals.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know it's often said that every job, on a base like that, everyone has an important job, and I think you played a very important role that may be often overlooked sometimes, but the pilots and the crews wouldn't have been able to do what they did if it weren't for guys like you.
Right.
And I wonder,
What are you looking for?
Yeah, these are the fellows that were in that square, the checkered box. And this Mr. Sergeant Lindbeck was my bunker, was my bunk with me. They were double beds, 20 on either side, so 40 in one hut. Yeah, and he was already up there at age 38.
wow.
So he went home almost a year before me.
And how old were you when you?
I went in at 20 and a half, 20
Wow.
and 6 months. And I was there at 21 and a half.